Yeah! 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 Yeah!
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? You'll have to forgive me for sounding a little bit ill. That's because I've just literally recovered from a sickness, bug thing, whatever, something been going around, so I'm just sort of on the mend. And the reason why I've not posted as well in a while is because I've had some very personal things happen in my life that have been a bit all over the place. But that all aside, we all know what video this is, right? It's the video that I've been wanting to make for a long time. I've mentioned it in other videos that I've been posting as of late. I will still finish Still Wakes the Deep. I'm actually going to get around to that after I've probably done recording all this. I think I've only got a couple more parts on that left, so we've not really got much longer of that game left necessarily. So I reckon 2 parts will do it. But as you can tell from the intro of the video, which took me about 2 seconds to make, I am so talented, I promise. And the footage that you're seeing on screen, it is the Sonic Unleashed video. So it's kind of going to be similar to how I did my Sonic Adventure 2 video. If the very few people who watch my content actually watch that, it's going to be a kind of similar thing. But I've actually got a little bit more of a structure in front of me. At least I think it is. It might work, it might not. I've broken the game down into sort of different sections, and we're going to talk about those different sections, what I think is good, what I think is bad, if I remember to do that part of it. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be glazing the shit out of this game just like everybody else. Some of the clips as well, you will see some clips in this video will be ones that I've reused from previous videos, and then other clips in this video are going to look slightly different because I have been modding Unleashed Recompiled. So yeah, some clips are going to look more different than others because I am going to get more clips for this video. I haven't got them yet, obviously, but I have added a few little mods here or there onto Unleashed Recompiled, which is amazing. It's so easy to mod. If you'd like a sort of walkthrough on how to mod the game, then yeah, I'll be more than happy to show you. But to be fair, I don't think it really needs a video. But just in case you want one, I can show you. But without any further ado, my friends, Sonic Unleashed. It's peak. It's peak. Guess I could elaborate. So, Sonic Unleashed sort of follows a kind of basic premise. It doesn't do anything that blows anything out of the water, but it does deliver a quite satisfying point A to point B. The story starts with Sonic, yet again, traumatizing Eggman by destroying all of his latest inventions by invading one of his airships. He is actively trying to go after Eggman because why the fuck not? And he destroys everything in his path. Eggman, of course, tries to use this as an opportunity to lure Sonic into his latest dastardly plan, as Sonic uses the Chaos Emeralds and turns supersonic. He chases Eggman lures him into a false sense of security, traps him in this weird sort of device thing that has very weirdly shaped guns, I suppose, as you could say, at the top of the ceiling. He takes all the energy from the Chaos Emeralds, uses the energy from the Chaos Emeralds to break the planet up. The energy, in turn, that comes from the planet, from Dark Gaia, who has been dormant for God knows how long at this point, gets transferred into Sonic, and he becomes the infamous Werehog. More on that later. At this point, Sonic is then casted back down to the planet, and he wakes up as Mr. Monster Guy, as Chip calls him.
Mr. Monster Guy?
And it begins his world adventure, which ironically I think was the name of this game in Japan. So the game starts in the lovely, quaint little city. It's not really a city, it's a town, village, whatever the hell you want to call it, of Apatos, which is based on Greece. Now you will notice that throughout this game, each location bar one is actually based on a region of the world, some a little bit more obvious than others. And it is up to Sonic and his new friend Chip to rebuild the planet after Eggman decided to absolutely fucking obliterate it for absolutely no reason. But each of these places, these continents, so to speak, all have these Gaia temples, which can harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds, or more or less revive them, to then rebuild the planet. And apparently this is something that happens every, is it 1,000 or million of years or something along those lines? I can't remember, but it's basically, there's a long period where the planet sort of stays in one piece, and then Dark Gaia goes like, I'm gonna fuck some shit up, wakes up, destroys the planet, and then Dark Gaia and his rival Chip, duke it out, so to speak.
Oh no! He slapped him!
But the zones in question are, like we said, Apatos, that is based on Greece. You have Spagonia, which is kind of a mix of Italy and Spain. You have Holoska, which is like the Antarctic, so either the North Pole, South Pole, or whatever. It's one of the two. It's North Pole in this game. You have Chunnan, which is China. You have Missouri, which is Africa. You have Empire City, which is just a blatant bootleg New York. And you have Adabat, which is kind of a mix of Thailand and Indonesia, from what I've gathered from people. I wouldn't know because I've not been to those parts of the world, but I'm assuming from people who have been to those parts of the world, that's what it is. So we're rolling with that. Oh, yeah, my dumbass also forgot Shamar. How could I forget Shamar? And then, of course, the final continent is Eggman Land, which is not based on anything. It just kind of serves as the end game point of the video game, if that makes sense. Basically, if you're out of the loop for any Sonic lore, Eggman Land is this like glorified Alton Towers without the Smiler crash. Too soon. And is literally hell on earth. So, yay. But yeah, the premise of the story is basically Sonic and Chip doing their best to fix the planet after Eggman decided to completely destroy it by pulling an Oppenheimer, and in turn put the beast known as Dark Gaia to rest for however long he decides to go to sleep. That's kind of it for the story. There's not really that much else to it, and I kind of do like its simplicity. I like the fact that it is simple and straightforward and doesn't try and do what a lot of games try to do nowadays by trying to like be as convoluted and as long-winded as possible. It's a relatively short and sweet story that tells its story coherently and clearly. I rate that. Like, I won't lie to you, there have been Sonic games that have tried way too hard. Shadow the Hedgehog. You know, to the point where it just kind of feels, you just kind of feel like, what even are they trying to tell us here? Why? Whereas Sonic Unleashed just sort of went like, right, we've got a gimmick, which I'll be talking about very soon. We've got a gimmick. How can we use that gimmick into this story? How can we create a story around this gimmick? Got it. We'll have Eggman break up the planet, some dormant beast that sort of bleeds dark energy, if that's what you want to call it, corrupts the entire world, and in turn, because the Chaos Emeralds were used, turns Sonic into that beast. And now Sonic has really stretchy limbs, increased muscle mass, and has a wolf-like appearance. Why does nobody else have that, Sega? I've got to talk about him, haven't I? I really, really have to talk about him. Well, here goes. So I don't think it's really much of a surprise to anyone when anyone who talks about this game mentions that the Werehog was very controversial. Because the Werehog was very controversial. Back in 2008 when this game first came out, he was a massive reason as to why this game got panned by critics and fans alike. They didn't like the direction that the game was going by introducing this much slower, more combat-centric version of Sonic. And listen, I understand why. I understand why some people didn't like this approach. I completely understand, because for the most part we play Sonic games to go fast, right? And obviously this new gameplay style with the Werehog was definitely more combat and platform focused, and speed sort of took the back burner, I suppose. And listen, I know a lot of us Unleashed fans feel like we have to justify ourselves as to why we love this game, but I genuinely mean this from the bottom of my heart. When I was a kid back in 2008 and I was seeing this game get promoted left, right and centre, the Werehog for me was a massive selling point. And bear in mind, I was only a really young Sonic fan at this point. Like, I'd not played many Sonic games at all. I played like Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog once or twice, and The Secret Rings. And also Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, if you really want to count that. I mean, I'm sure there were others, but obviously I'm not going to be able to cast my mind back like that far back. Like, we're talking 18 years ago, so I mean, a lot's happened since then. Like, I slept a few times. But this game kind of came out during that as we call it, the dark age of Sonic games, I suppose, or towards the back end of the dark age of Sonic games. And what we mean by that is that pretty much every game after Sonic Adventure 2, I'd say up until maybe Generations, but some would argue maybe even beyond then, because even though Generations was absolutely phenomenal, we also subsequently got games like Colors, which either you love or you hate with that game. There's plenty of people who absolutely love that and hold it to the highest possible standard that they possibly can, and then there's other people that say it was absolute dumpster fire. And then we had also other games come out, Sonic Lost Worlds, Sonic Forces, video on that coming soon. Again, they weren't great, but would you consider them to be in the dark age of Sonic? I don't know, but still games like Forces did try to reinvent the wheel. And Sonic Unleashed was kind of no stranger to that back in 2008. It was yet another Sonic game trying to cram a gimmick into a game and then build the story around said gimmick. Kind of like how they tried to justify Shadow using guns in Shadow the Hedgehog. Also justify why his sacrifice ultimately meant nothing now at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, because for those who played Sonic Adventure 2, you would know that Shadow actually sacrifices himself at the end of the game, and it was meant to be a one-off. And then he came back in Heroes. We had absolutely no idea why he was back. And yeah, they had to try and explain it. But anyway, enough about other Sonic games. This is about the Werehog, goddammit. The Werehog, for me, I absolutely love the Werehog. To the point where I pre-ordered Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, the digital deluxe edition, just for the Werehog. I'm very sensible with money. And I remember back in 2008, because I played Unleashed first, the Wii version of Unleashed for those who don't know. Then I played the HD version like a bit later. I think both versions of the Werehog, but we're going to focus on the HD version here, but I think both versions of the Werehog play really, really well. A lot of people call the Werehog gameplay like a watered down God of War, a God of War wannabe, and it's just not that intuitive or interesting. But a lot of you need to remember that this game mainly is catered to children, okay? Not going to get the complexity of God of War combos. And I'm sure with the release of Unleashed Recompiled, I'm sure there's some mods out there that add a little bit more depth to the combat. I don't know, can't say for certain. But you do need to remember that this is still very much a kid's game. And let me explain to you why I love the Werehog, and I really do, and I might be here for God knows how long. So, first of all, the main thing that stands out for me is the completely different style of gameplay. You have two distinctive styles of gameplay in this game. You have the speed sections with Sonic, then you have the combat, heavy platforming sections with Sonic the Werehog. And both gameplay styles can be satisfying for different reasons. Yes, it's incredibly satisfying to go at max speed with Sonic and, you know, be able to complete a stage as quickly as possible. It absolutely is. Like, don't get me wrong, the day stages in this game, which I've probably mentioned already, are some of the best the series has to offer. But the different approach to gameplay that the Werehog takes, I really enjoy. Yes, the Werehog stages are longer, they absolutely are 100%, but that is kind of the point, considering the fact that he doesn't move anywhere near half the speed that Sonic does. Even though the combat is simplified, as some people call it, I actually really enjoy the combat. Like, the combos, even though, yes, there's not like a massive list of combos, they're still really fun to pull off, and they can still be very satisfying. And I just think overall, yeah, the combat can also get a little bit tedious and stuff like that. Because trust me, there are some stages in this game that seem to just throw wave after wave after wave of enemies at you. But genuinely, the combat in this game as the Werehog, I think is very suffice. And I'm not just talking about Unleashed Recompiled, I'm talking about Unleashed as a base game as well. I loved it back then in 2008, and I love it now in 2025. And the fact that the Unleashed Recompiled project does exist makes me feel like a child again, being able to play my favourite Sonic game of all time, and I will die on that hill. And like I say, no, I'm not one of those new wave fans that says Sonic Unleashed is the best thing since sliced bread, because it is not a flawless game, and neither is the Werehog. Some of the platforming sections as the Werehog, Eggman and Land, I'm looking at you, can be very frustrating. And there are some mini boss fights, specifically the one in Empire City, where they just kind of feel a little bit BS at times, i.e. this enemy will jump, cause a shockwave, and before you can even get up, he causes a shockwave again and sends you flying off the building. Luckily, there's a checkpoint just before that point, but that's besides the point. It still feels like a kick in the ballsack. Obviously, we have to talk about Jason Griffith as Sonic the Werehog. Poor guy got strep throat doing this. I hope he's recovered now. But for better or worse, whether you like it or not, his Werehog voice is iconic. Like, a lot of people were begging, myself included, for any time in Crossworlds, if you go off the edge and like fall down a bottomless pit or something, we had to hear the Werehog death scream. But I could imagine that getting very annoying very quickly, so I'm kind of actually glad they've not actually included it. But here's the thing I love most about the Werehog, and none of this was revealed in the trailers. In fact, the trailers, especially the earlier ones, gave us a little bit of a different insight into how Sonic would behave as the Werehog. Was he going to be a bit more feral? Was he going to be a bit more vicious? Was he going to be a bit more angry? Was he just not going to be himself? And the thing I love about it the most is because of Sonic's will and his spirit and his determination and just how positive he is and just his overall mindset, despite the fact that Dark Guy's energy turned him into this beast with, like, and you see it throughout the game, Dark Guy's energy gets a hold of everybody. They start acting out of character. You know, if you interact with people in hub worlds and they've been possessed by Dark Guy's energy, they are not the same person. They're either very timid or they're very angry or anything else, when usually they're very, very friendly people by the day. Because of Sonic's sheer willpower and his strength, he doesn't let it affect him. So the only thing about him that's changed is his appearance. That's it. He's still the same Sonic. He's got a heart of gold, and he cares about anyone and everyone, and all he wants to do is help people. That's all he wants to do, and he cares about his friends. He cares about everybody he comes across, and that's what I love. They could have easily gone down the edgy route of what they did with Shadow 05 and make him just this angsty, I'm a Werehog, like, I'm never doing that again, fuck that shit. But they could have easily gone down that route, and they didn't. So what they did, they stuck to Sonic's heart and said, how would Sonic react to getting possessed by this dark energy? And they just all turned around and said, well, he wouldn't. Yeah, his appearance would change, but he would still be the same old Sonic. He might look scary, but deep down he's a big fucking softie. Yeah, the Werehog's awesome. I mean, some of the stages can be a bit frustrating, I admit. Like, some of the stages just can be a bit, And yes, okay, you spend slightly more time playing as Sonic the Werehog, which is another thing people didn't like. But the way I see it is yeah, we technically get more Werehog stages, because I think we do. I don't think it's by much, but I think we do. We spend a little bit more time as the Werehog. But the way I see it is yeah, we get slightly less time as regular Sonic. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because the day stages in this game are absolutely awesome. All the Sonic the Hedgehog stages are absolutely awesome. So I don't mind having a less is more thing. Like, I mean, look at Adventure 2. How many speed stages are in that game? You probably spend more time playing as Knuckles, Rouge, Tails, and Eggman than you do playing as Shadow and Sonic. And I know that's 4 different characters, but effectively they're just kind of mirror matches of each other, right? So Knuckles is what Rouge is to Knuckles, I suppose. I am trying not to confuse myself here. But you get the point. Like, the gameplay styles are the same, they're just different characters is what I'm trying to say. So the mixed stages, you're either playing as Tails or Eggman. The treasure hunting stage, you're either playing as Knuckles or Rouge, right? You're spending more time playing those stages than you are the speed stages as Sonic and Shadow. Nobody had a problem with that, though, did they? Just saying. I'm just saying, the Werehog's awesome, and if you disagree, that's fine, that's your opinion, but your opinion is wrong. We briefly covered the 2 different kinds of stages that are in Sonic Unleashed, the day and night stages, but I'm going to take the time to actually go into a little bit more detail about them. So, as established, the day stages and the night stages are radically different from one another. On one hand, with the day stages, you have these high-speed, adrenaline-rushing, action-packed sort of slaloms, if you will. Well, they're not really slaloms, but the whole point is you've got to get from point A to point B very, very quickly. And the game rewards you for how quick you complete a stage, i.e. telling you that you set a new record, increasing your rank. Because a lot of Sonic Unleashed's ranking system, at least in the day stages, is actually based on how quick you actually complete the stage. Whereas in older Sonic games, such as Sonic Adventure 2, it is more based on how you complete the stage, as well as the time you complete it in, as in, it's a bit more intricate than what Unleashed is. Unleashed's main attribute of getting an S rank, which is the highest rank in the game, is how quick you can complete the stage. Yes, there are other factors in place, as in how many enemies that you destroy, how many rings you collect, although I think rings less so because there is an overabundance of rings in this game. Like, it's actually harder to get a very, very low amount of rings than it is to get a very high amount of rings. For example, in Spagonia Day, Act 1, you can easily rack up about 950 rings. Some have even broke into the thousands because of the amount of rings that are at your disposal. And a lot of the time, these stages will have these on-rails sort of dashing from side to side sections. Again, I'll use Spagonia Day as an example. There's actually a few segments in that game where all you have to do is press R1 or L1 or whatever the button is for your controller of choice, dash from side to side to avoid enemy attacks and also to avoid crashing into a wall. So not collecting rings is kind of impossible, because no matter which way you strafe, you're always going to be running into rings. But the beautiful thing I love about the day stages is the fact that it is entirely based on reaction time. Yes, okay, I don't know if you can turn it off. You might be able to, you might not be able to. You will get prompted to press a button within a split second of when you actually have to press it. For example, in Windmill Isle Act 1, or sorry, Act 2 should I say, and even Act 1 to some degree I think, but Act 2 definitely, there's a lot of segments where you have to quickly duck down to get underneath some kind of obstacle in front of you. And you have such a small window of time to keep Sonic's momentum going, it feels satisfying when you pull it off perfectly. The general sense of speed as well in these day stages is unlike anything I've played. I have played so many Sonic games in my lifetime now. Obviously back then I hadn't played that many. I could probably count how many I'd played on maybe one and a half hands. Now I would probably require at the very least about 4 hands to tell you how many Sonic games I've played, maybe, probably even more than that. And I have played so many Sonic games, I have yet to play one that gives me that same sense of speed that Unleashed does with the day stages. And I think it's a big reason as to why these stages are held at the top of this pedestal, because they are just beautifully crafted. And I know it's like a meme when they say, oh yeah, this game really makes you feel like Spider-Man. You know, when IGN reviewed Spider-Man, well, this game really makes you feel like Sonic. It really does. I mean, in essence, you could also argue, yes, okay, if you dig really, really deep, Sonic technically isn't going that fast, but it's just how the camera is and just everything that's going around, and just the fact that everything's whizzing past you so quickly, the way that the levels and the stages are built, the scale of everything, it just genuinely feels like you are going so fast, and I love it. The night stages, as we've also established, more focused on combat and platforming, and you rack up a score more based on how many enemies you take out and how you take out the enemies, how many combos you rack up, X, Y, Z. It's a bit more focused on the actual combat of it. Not saying the day stages aren't focused on that, because the day stages do involve some kind of combat with the homing attacks and also dashing through enemies, which you do get points on, but it's more focused on the combat with the night stages. As we said, I'm not going to dig too deep into the night stages because I do generally feel like I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to say in the Werehog section of this video. But I will elaborate in saying I do love the fact that between stages you have to adapt your playstyle. You can't approach a Werehog stage with the same mindset that you would a day stage. The day stages is all about going fast, completing the stage as quickly as possible. Whereas, yes, okay, you do kind of get rewarded for completing the night stages quickly, but you won't see the maximum possible ranking that you can get if you just like ignore the enemies and only defeat the enemies that you have to defeat. Maybe if it's like a mini boss that if you don't defeat it, the door to the next room doesn't open. It's the Werehog is purely focused and rewarded on how you deal with combat situations. Obviously, in both of these stages, and we are going to talk about the elephant in the room, the elephant in the room is the Sun and Moon medals. Why, Sega? Just fucking why? So, long story short, all Sonic games love to have these collectibles in place, which, don't get me wrong, Sonic Unleashed has a lot of these collectibles in there, optional collectibles. They have videotapes, they have art books, this, that, and the other that you can unlock and then view when you go to Professor Pickle's lab. The Sun and Moon medals, however, which should have always been an optional collectible, are a fucking requirement to progress in the story. And it gets incredibly tedious, especially when you hit Adabat. There are stages that are locked behind such a high medal level, it makes me want to fucking commit. With Unleashed recompiled, there are mods that you can bypass this, so you don't need the medal requirement, but we are strictly speaking base Unleashed, completely unmodded, despite the fact that what you're seeing on your screen right now is a modded playthrough of Unleashed. But I've not got any gameplay mods, they're just purely visual mods, so they don't actually affect the base game, if that makes sense, so I get a free pass. But look, having these medal requirements for progression is one thing, but another thing, and it's almost like Sega was completely self-aware, it's hiding them in the most ridiculous places, to the point where you're just thinking, who even thought of this? Did the Sega hate us that much? There's a medal in Windmill Isle Act 2 where you are going breakneck speed as Sonic, but to find this medal, you've got to come to a complete stop, go off the beaten path, and go behind this wall, and there's a medal there. You've completely killed my momentum to make me do that. Before anyone says, no one's made you do that. Yes, they have, because we need these things to progress in the bastard story. I mean, all in all, a lot of people talk about the Sun and Moon medals as if they've killed their family or something. I don't think they're that bad, but I completely understand, and I think it is a very valid criticism of Sonic Unleashed. It's without question the worst thing about this game. These were optional collectibles, it wouldn't be a problem, but the fact that they are entirely tied to progression is just a slap in the face. Like, who made this decision? Who thought, you know what, we'll make these things called Sun and Moon medals having directly linked to progression, but not just that, we're going to hide them in the most inconvenient spots you could possibly imagine. Like, trust me, when you get to Adabat, you will hit a brick wall and you will find yourself replaying stages over and over and over and over and over again to get more and more and more medals so you can progress through the story. I personally see a lot of replayability in Sonic Unleashed stages anyway, but for people who just generally just want to complete the game, it ain't great, Chief. Now, Sonic Unleashed, just like a few Sonic games before, Sonic 06 had this, Sonic Unleashed has these things called hub worlds, which is, well, a central hub for Sonic and Chip to mingle, I guess. And these hub worlds include citizens and residents that you can speak to, conversate with, do mini games with. You've got the dude who sells the hot dogs, who offers you challenges, which is a really nice touch, by the way. I really like that. You get time trial challenges, combat challenges, ring challenges, and basically what you have to do is either beat the stage in a certain time, collect X amount of rings, defeat X amount of enemies, and they have like 3 levels to them. So it does give you an incentive to play them, because they are challenges and they make you think, right, I've got to focus on this, or I've got to focus on that, and I've got to make sure that I don't be in the mindset of just playing it like I would usually. You've got a goal. It's not just about reaching point A to point B as quickly as possible, unless of course it is the time trial stages, then it legitimately is that, yes. But it's extra content there that does keep you engaged, I'd say. And within every single hub world, there is of course the stage area. So there's always sort of like a portal, heavy quotations there, to take you to another segment of the town, which is where all your stages are, and you can practice combat, you can practice all different sorts of moves and techniques, this, that, and the other. It's kind of like a 2-in-1. It's sort of like a soft training ground, but also at the same time it's where you select your stages, which I really do think is a nice touch. Obviously, Sega learned from the failure that was Sonic 06 and its hub worlds. I'm going to just vaguely touch upon this, only just briefly, because I haven't played the SD version for a lot, well, since 2008. I've not played the SD version for 18 years, so my knowledge of it is completely shot, but I will give it a go. So the differences between the HD version and the SD version is the SD version is a bit more stripped back. Understandably so, because it was working on severely limited hardware, the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo Wii. They weren't exactly powerhouses or juggernauts of the console generation at the time. Obviously the PS2 was from the previous generation, and the Nintendo Wii, just like with most Nintendo consoles, sorry Nintendo fans, aren't quite as powerful as what the Xbox and the PlayStation can have to offer. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's why the Nintendo Wii was generally more affordable than a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox 360. From what I can remember of the SD version that differs from the HD version is that the SD version kind of completely gets rid of hub worlds. Like, you can still visit the towns and stuff, but you're sort of presented with a menu where you can talk to residents through that, and it's sort of kind of like a slideshow thing. It's not actual like cutscenes or animations, this, that, and the other. And then you go to these temples, these Gaia temples, just like your stages, which kind of serve as a soft hub world. Like, you can roam in there as Sonic, but there's not really much to do. It just kind of serves legitimately as a, oh, here you are, here's your levels, pick and choose, whatever. That's kind of what they serve as. Correct me if I'm wrong as well, by the way, but doesn't the SD version also have some stages missing? Like, they've stripped certain parts of the game out? It might even be entire continents. I'm not quite sure. Again, can't remember. 18 years. I feel fucking old. I'm gonna stop. All in all, in terms of like the game's story, it's effectively the same. You have the same cutscenes, they're just done in a lower resolution. Like, you'll get the in-game cutscenes that are clearly ripped from the HD version of the game. They've just lowered the resolution like you wouldn't believe to make sure that it can run. And at the end of the day, they're just pre-rendered cutscenes anyway, so they're not really going to do too much damage, are they? And now we have to confront the biggest elephant in the room. The infamous Eggman Land.
For fuck's sake!
Let's just get this over with. Eggman Land has notoriously been seen as one of the hardest, if not the hardest Sonic stage of all time. It certainly has a case for it. My first ever playthrough as a kid, it took me over a fucking hour to get through it. And that's without the final boss. Since replaying through Unleashed Recompiled, I actually trimmed that down to 45 minutes. That is still way too long for a Sonic stage. What does Eggman Land comprise of other than eternal torture and damnation? Well, it comprises of a very lengthy stage where you alternate between daytime and nighttime Sonic. And you are going through God knows how many different scenarios. You're trying to rack your brain around the platforming, especially as a Werehog. Are sections for both day and night Sonic that are just so bloody punishing to the point where you genuinely question where the fuck the balancing team was. This stage doesn't pull any punches. Eggman Land does not pull any punches. You get thrown in the deep end, and the game is basically saying to you, huh, good luck. I have never played a stage or mission in any video game where I've genuinely come close to ripping my own hair out. Like, there's a challenge. And then there's Eggman Land. Only people who enjoy Eggman Land, unironically, are fucking masochists. You guys love pain. Like, you'd love to be in a Saw film for real. We'll say, though, despite the fact that this stage is just so unfair at times, and it is unfair, because there are segments where you're playing as the Werehog, and you have to balance on these pipes, right? My boy's not got a drop shadow. So how the hell are you meant to judge the distance and whether or not you've landed on the next section? But I will say, despite all that, when you do complete it, it is satisfying, even though you never ever want to go back to it ever again. My most recent playthrough, I shit you not, after the 45-minute slog that I had playing Eggman Land and after losing a plethora of lives, I'm not gonna fucking bullshit and sit here and tell you, I did it without losing a life. No, anyone who tells you that is a liar, okay? I genuinely had to just turn everything off and be like, right, I'm going to bed. Because bear in mind, it's like 3:30 in the morning, all right? I was like, I'm going to bed. I will tackle Dark Gaia tomorrow. I'm going to bed. Admittedly, I did try Dark Gaia that night. Biggest mistake of my life. Because the Dark Gaia boss fight, by the way, isn't actually that hard, but because I'd spent 45 minutes ripping my hair out, I was still tilted. I couldn't think straight. So when I got to the Supersonic section of Dark Gaia, oh my god, I died a lot. And then I came back to it the following day and did it in one try. Because I didn't have to go through Eggman Land again. Yeah, you fight Eggman before Dark Gaia, by the way, but that boss is so piss easy. Like, it's so easy. And ironically enough, both boss fights, technically all three boss fights are easier than Eggman Land. It's not even close. Like, they are so easy. After you've obviously beaten those bosses, the game is complete. Chip says sayonara, you get thrown back up to the surface, and the credits roll. Which, by the way, absolutely love the credits. Amazing! More the song, if anything, but yeah. Right. Let's talk about the fam. Now, Sonic Unleashed has a relatively vast array of characters, but at the same time, it has a very focused group of characters, if that makes sense. There have been plenty of Sonic games where there's been a lot of characters and there's not really a focus on either a small group of them or a massive focus on maybe one or two, barring Sonic. And there's also been other Sonic games where they have even less characters that they focus on. However, with Unleashed, every single character in this game feels like they actually play some kind of important role to the story. Sonic, I think it goes without saying, we don't really need to explain why he is the center point of his, own fucking game. But the other characters that are involved in this game, Tails, Chip, Eggman, Dark Gaia, Amy, Professor fucking Pickle.
How dare they call this culinary concoction food?
They all genuinely feel like they have some kind of purpose in the game. Obviously, some more so than others. I'm just going to say it right now. I think if we are going to talk about pointless characters in this game, I would very much argue that Tails is 100% in that conversation. Tails more or less just serves as a purpose of going from continent to continent, as you will see in the stages involving him and the tornado. But everybody in this game does feel like they serve some kind of purpose, Eggman being one of the main focal points in terms of, breaking up the planet for his dream of opening Eggman Land. Yes, I know I forgot to mention that when talking about the story, but don't worry, I made amends earlier. You have Dark Gaia, which actually does serve as the game's main antagonist. Yes, Eggman is still an antagonist in this game, and there are boss fights including Eggman in them, but the main antagonist of this game is Dark Gaia. I mean, he's the final boss of the game. He's the main thing that you have to defeat. Amy also just kind of serves as a bit of, I guess, support for Sonic. Like, you can talk to her, you can visit her and this, that, and the other, but she doesn't really have any sort of major implication on the story. But at the same time, again, she still serves a purpose, and especially later in the game, it does kind of imply that she does play a very important role in people's morale. And that is so Amy, is when everybody else is being corrupted by Dark Gaia, Amy is that one person, or Hedgehog in this case, who actually is there for the people on Earth while Sonic is fighting the good fight, I suppose. Professor Pickle, it goes without saying, is an absolute Giga Chad. Let's just be completely honest here. In all seriousness, Professor Pickle sort of serves as the brains of the operation, I suppose. He's the one who always advises Sonic, tells him where to go, tells him where these Gaia temples are, and really does pave the way for Sonic to fix the planet. Going into a bit more detail with Chip, it starts the game where he completely loses his memory, and I'll be honest with you, Chip more or less, especially at the start of the game, kind of serves as a Tails substitute. So how Sonic and Tails are usually inseparable, in this game Tails kind of takes a little bit of a back seat, and Chip sort of takes the place of him, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, even though when I was a kid, when I first played this game, I wasn't entirely sold on the character of Chip. But as I've grown up into a somewhat responsible adult, I've grown to really appreciate Chip as a character, and you find out later in the game, specifically in the third act of the game, that he is indeed Dark Gaia's opposite. He is Light Gaia, and basically explains to Sonic that they've done this whole song and dance before. They've had this fight before, Dark Gaia versus Light Gaia, bring it all on, and that it's a generational thing. Once it's done, it's bound to happen again. So as a character, he turned from a kind of low-key, annoying sidekick into one of the major pivots of the game, if we can call it that. Sonic Unleashed is very much focused on the characters who need to be present, and that's what I really love about every single character in this game. No character, even though I did call Tails kind of useless earlier and Amy kind of also useless but not as useless as Tails, every character in this game feels like they belong, right? It's not an out of place sort of, we'll include that character, we'll include that character, and we'll include that character. No, Sega looked at the story of this game and thought, do you know what? We can tell a story on a really grand scale, but have a very centralized group of characters who all feel important to the story. Of course, there are other characters in the game, like Boss is his name, I think. He's a guy that sort of teleports between continents, and you kind of have to do some very, 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 very creepy favors because of his bond with this little girl in Spagonia. It's a bit fucking weird, I won't lie.
Fucking hell, man. I'm finished.
But the humans in this game also feel like they have a very direct connection with everything that's going on. It's not a case of them just being NPCs. They do feel like they serve a role. And all the characters, the NPCs in these, towns, they do have personality and they have their own little quirks. And I absolutely love that about this game. And again, going back to Eggman, I don't mind him taking sort of like the backseat in terms of being the antagonist, because yeah, Eggman is Sonic's main nemesis. He is his arch rival. But at the same time, it's okay for Eggman to take a backseat when it's done right, unlike in Forces. But here it's done really well because Dark Gaia genuinely feels like a massive threat. I mean, it's not every day you've got this gargantuan beast trapped in the core of your planet who just decides to wake up and go like, fuck you all then. Whereas in Forces, and I will go into more detail in Forces, you have a character that is just a little bit upset over being called weak. That actually happened. And then Eggman is sort of relegated to the backseat to a character like that. Yeah, Forces are getting ripped in your arsehole. But the villain here, Dark Gaia, feels like a big deal. And the end game, the final boss fight, everything, it feels spectacular. Even though the boss fight is a little bit easy, as I've established earlier on in the video, it still feels like a big deal. And I can really appreciate that. But that is not so much to do with the boss fight itself. It's more to do with the fact that the character actually feels like there's some importance in the story. Unleashed's range of characters is second to none in my opinion. I think Sonic Unleashed, with the array of characters it has to deal with, does the best possible job it can, and it just is so much better than a lot of Sonic games with flying colours. I find that with a lot of Sonic games, and this is not a bad thing necessarily, I find there's not really enough of a focus on characters. Obviously, we have seen that get better, especially with Shadow Generations. You deep dive into Shadow as a character, his history, his connections, his relationships, and I love that. But this game kind of came out in an era where Sonic games didn't really do that, and I just find the actual personalization, the personal connection these characters have to the story, to the world, it really, really adds something special, and I do love that. I think Unleashed, in terms of major characters, is very much a great case of less is more. And I do think that's the case, because like I said, there's not a massive array of characters in this game, but every single one serves a purpose. I think you can probably tell by this point how much this game means to me. The fact that I've spent as long as I have, and this is with editing by the way, this video would have been a lot longer if I didn't make so many mistakes. Because at the end of the day, I am a human being and I trip over my words. And yes, I've technically kind of left some of that in, but that's because I just couldn't be asked to clear it, so deal with it. I'm pretty sure you can tell at this point just how much this game actually means to me. It came out during a time where obviously I was a kid, didn't have as many responsibilities, and the world felt like a much happier place. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but given everything that's going on in the world right now, I would snap someone's hand off if they told me that I could go back to 2008 and experience this game for the first time all over again. The soundtrack, which you've been hearing throughout this video, to the gameplay, to the graphics, to the overall vibe that Sonic Unleashed gives, this game genuinely resonates with me on such a personal level. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at this, listen to this, whatever this, and think, why is this grown-ass man talking about Sonic Unleashed as if it's something that means so much to him? Because it does. When I got to re-experience this game with the Unleashed Recompile project, genuinely, I cannot put into words just how happy I was being able to play this game yet again for the first time in 17 years. Yes, I'm aware I've been saying 18 years throughout this video, but I feel like a right tit now. However, I've recorded that much footage, I cannot be asked to go back and correct it. I've been a huge Sonic fan since I was about 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old, one of the two. Even though, most of the time, I do love pretty much every Sonic game that I play, there's yet to be a Sonic game that connects with me and resonates with me quite on the level that Sonic Unleashed does. Even though I've spent the best part of, we'll say 45 minutes, I don't know how long this video is going to be until after I, add this to the project. We'll say for argument's sake, 45 minutes to an hour. It's hard to put into words. It's why this video has taken so long for me to make. And listen, I'm not expecting many people to watch this. I don't quite frankly care if many people watch this. I made this for me, and I know that sounds really selfish, but I have been waiting for the day where I can just talk about something that I really, really love. Still to this day, 17 years later, there are plenty of moments in this game that get me misty-eyed, and I don't often get emotional at video games. Like, you could genuinely ask me what games have moved me on an emotional level, and I would actually be able to name you every single one, because very few have actually managed to move me to the core like that. Sonic Unleashed wasn't just a great video game, nor was it just a great Sonic game. It was an extremely undervalued and underappreciated game at the time, and it genuinely just means so much to me and makes me so happy that it's finally getting the recognition that it actually deserves. I'm so glad that the days where people took IGN reviews seriously are well and truly behind us, because I genuinely think and I firmly believe that IGN was a massive reason as to why this game was seen as a flop way back when. And I don't blame the general public, because back then the internet was still very much young. So it was always easy to take video game reviews very seriously. And when I was waiting for my birthday to come around, because I started playing Unleashed a little bit later than everybody else, I was waiting for my birthday to come around so I could play Sonic Unleashed for the first time. I was dreading the fact that this game was gonna suck. And it didn't. The moment I played it, I just knew that the reviews I was reading online were... Did they even play the same game? I've taken up enough of your time, and I appreciate it if you've made it this far into the video, and I very much thank you. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I'm not going to ask you to like. I'm not even going to ask you to comment. It means more than enough that you've actually just listened to me ramble about something that I genuinely love. And with that being said, I bid you adieu. Thank you so much for watching this video and listening to me talk about this. I will bid you farewell and good night.